gone to symposiums. You can go watch all these demos. You may never make what you watch in those symposiums, but you learn. You get little pieces here and there to put in your personal toolbox, if you will, as far as your turning experience. So we all learn from each other, and that's what's so great about this club, is the sharing. So thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
What I'm going to attempt to turn this month is a small platter, and I brought several to just kind of show some. This one is one that I did actually with Jimmy Clues in 2011, and it's English sycamore. And just to kind of show you some of the different options here. This is another one that Gerald and Michael Frazier and I got together at his house once and did this. It's kind of a Jimmy Clues style again, with the OG on the back. Here's one that Gerald did. Again, it's kind of the Jimmy Clues style, the OG on the back side. It's just kind of a classic form, so we all seem to like that. Here's another one, and the idea is you get these wide rims, you have a canvas, if you will, to work with for decorating or painting or whatever. This one Gerald did, kind of really cool one here, with eagle burned in the middle, and then the red and white and blue, kind of a flag stripes off on the side. So I guess you guys can see that, yeah, okay. So just some different ideas. Here's another one that Gerald just did, is really interesting. It's copper that he torched to give a little color to, and then set in there. I don't know if you can tell from there or not, but they're little segmented pieces to fit around, and then epoxy poured over the top. And then after I do the demo, then Gerald's going to talk about different texturing techniques. He had this last month, though I don't think it was as much on there, but just to give you some ideas on what you can do to texture. It doesn't take a lot of special tools. Always, sometimes it does, but I mean, you can have a lot of special tools, or you can just use what you have at home. There's a lot of options. So this again is one of those, just kind of get you thinking about what you can do with a platter. This piece I have on here is ash that I already had. I think it's about 10 inches in diameter. And it's mounted on the chuck on a wood screw. So there's a hole drilled in there, and then the wood screw is held in the chuck. So what I'm going to do start with is just round it, and we'll see how this ash cuts. All right. See if I can get this round. I'm not real good at cutting circles on the bandsaw, so it's obviously a little bit out of balance here. We must be on the high speed. Hang on a second. I'm gonna have to change the belt real quick. I did not realize that. All right, how do you change this one? You gotta loosen this?
Yeah.
Okay. I got it. Because that stopped pretty easily when I was trying to cut. Don't need a lot of high speed for this anyway. That's still plenty fast. Yeah, it's a fingernail ground gouge. Almost. I got a little bit of a flat spot there. Okay, so I got it round. I'm going to flatten this will be the bottom of the platter. This will be the top. That's where the hollow portion of it will be. That's why the screw center is on that side. So on the platter, the way we're going to do it is turn the bottom, put a tenon on it, and then turn it around and do the top. Okay, so that's pretty flat now. Then what I'm going to do is mark out for my tenon. I already have my calipers preset for the diameter, and I'm going to do actually a mortise, not a tenon on this. Calipers?
Right. Why can't you just use a point? Why do you
I'm sorry, use a what?
Why can't you just use a marker or a point instead of things that if it catches on the other side, it's going to make a bad day.
You can. But this, if you see what I'm doing, I start touching it lightly and I can see where the other side is. So I know where. If you don't have the 2 points,
What he's doing there is he wants that circle to be 3 inches. Say 3 inches. That makes it 3 inches.
okay. You can. I could get out a ruler and measure from the center over 1.5 inches for a 3-inch or 1 inch, and then use a pencil. This is just saves a step. I don't have to stop the lathe and do it. And as long as you're just holding at an angle and don't let that point touch, you're okay. Now, have you ever done it and had it touch?
No, because I'm scared it will.
I have, unfortunately, and it scares the heck out of you. It'll just kind of flip back and actually, maybe
and
twist.
2 pointy ends that don't do well with
Yeah.
the end.
It didn't fly out of my hand. Now, I guess it could, but you'd have to really be hip pushing hard, I think.
What you could do is use a school compass with 1 point and a pencil on the other end.
Do the same thing.
And the pencil without the compass goes exactly the same. And how critical is that to be exactly where you want it?
Hang on a second.
I don't think it's that critical, but if he wants all of it to be at 3 inches, and when he sets that, then he don't have to pick up a ruler. He can just 3 inches, 3 inches, 3 inches.
What? These are set to my jaws, okay?
Okay.
You don't want your jaws way out. You don't want them
Right.
too far in. If they're way out, then if you have the jaws way open, so you make that hole too big, then only these points are touching,
Right, I understand that.
and you don't get as good a grip. So you want to size it where the jaws are almost fully closed, because basically, from what I'm saying, the way they make these, they mill these round, and then they cut them. Good old-fashioned electronics are great. So this is just a quick, easy way, Larry. There's multiple ways to do it. And also through this whole process, whatever works for you, you're comfortable doing, that's what you need to do.
Okay.
Just because I do it this way doesn't mean you have to.
Well, I've just seen you do it, and I've seen a lot of other folks do it, and I just
It's quick and it's easy. And as long as, like you said, you don't let that touch. Now, let me turn this way down. I mean, if it hits, see, it brings it around. Now, of course, it's going, 5,000 RPM is going to be a lot more dramatic than that. But it's easy to watch because you're really, when you're doing this, even though you're putting this point in, I'm really watching this side. Because when I first touch this, I want to see where that shadow line is. So when this starts, if I'm out here, see, it's way too far out. So I'm really watching for that line to start appearing so I know which way to move it to get it centered. So now I can see I'm right there. So if you're watching that point, and make sure you don't get too close. Well, that's actually, this is 2-inch. Don was using that as an example. It's whatever size jaws, whatever brand chuck you have. These are, I'm not even sure they're 2 inches. Is that what they are? Somebody know?
50 millimeter, I think. But
Yeah.
generally accepted is 2.
2. So I just took this, change hands here, and just put it up there, and you can see I've got it a little bit larger, just to give me a little bit of room. So that the jaws are still going to be recessed in there nicely. So now I'm going to do my recess in the center. So this is just a parting tool. It's coming straight in. Just to get that started, and then I'll come in and turn out the center. Just trying to get rid of that lip there. As always with when you're chucking, you want a nice flat surface right in here for the jaws to sit against. And since I can't cut smooth, I always love my scraper. So this is a negative rake scraper, a little bit high. Just going to come in and smooth this, hopefully. Speaking of sharpening, I did sharpen this, but not a real good job on it. I've got something not quite right on this scraper. I don't know if you guys, how many of you turned ash? It's not always the easiest to turn. But the other piece I have here is my backup in case I mess this one up, is pecan, and it's a lot harder. So I'm going to stick with the ash. That's pretty smooth. Bottom of that could be. However deep you are comfortable with chucking. I have maybe 1/8 of an inch, which those jaws will hold very strong, but if you're a newer turner and aren't comfortable with that shallow of a recess, then you can always make it deeper. I'm just using this end of the parting tool as a scraper to kind of try to smooth that up a little bit. I'm going to get rid of that groove I put there real quick. And actually, since I took that down a little bit to take that mark off, I'm going to go a little bit deeper here, because I got pretty shallow. I'm going to mark out how wide I want this foot. Now, I always tend to make them too narrow. You can see how wide this is here. The key, what you want to do is, and I guess I do need to go deeper, you need to make this recess deeper than the outside, so that when you have this, when you're expanding the jaws in there, you're out into the solid wood. If you do it the other way, where the outside is deeper than the inside, that wood can split out a lot easier. But since I'm expanding in this, it's got all this area around here to hold it. So I do need to go, didn't go deep enough, because I'd be very shallow out here. So I do need to make that a little bit deeper than what I have it. I always have to stop and think which way to go on that, which side is actually deeper than the other. Okay, that should be deep enough. So I'm going to just use the long point of the skew, and that's how wide my foot's going to be. So now I can start coming in, taking away some of this wood. And what this will also do is it gives you a little bit of a lift, so this bowl does not sit, or the platter does not sit flat on this area here. One of the design, when you look at designs and everything, just even platters that you buy, plates at your house, they always have a little bit of lift, so they're not sitting flat on the table. It just aesthetically looks better with it raised up just a little bit, and that's probably, I'd say, about a 1/16 of an inch. So that's what they call lift. And every one of these, you can see, has that little bit of lift. That's just one of the design features that work when you're turning or making things, really. So I've got that little bit of a lip right there. I'll go a little bit more as I take this down. So what I'm going to do now is start turning the OG. And if I can do this correctly, based on Jimmy Clue's method, which is usually pretty simple, and I had to make notes, if I can read my own notes here, so I have to look at this every time. So basically from here to here, I'm going to divide that into thirds. Now, he does it just with his fingers, but I've got my Fibonacci gauge here. And so that's the golden mean, if you will. So that's about a third of that. So I want to put that right on the edge there and out to what's going to be my rim. So that gives me approximately 2/3 here and 1/3 here. So I'm going to put my pencil mark there. So that's where I'm going to go. From there out.
I've always wondered, and this may be the time to ask it, you've got the smaller portion of the 1/3 to the center and the 2/3 out. Aesthetically, what would it look like if you reversed it?
It would probably look heavy on the bottom, because then this wider part would be a lot further out. So you wouldn't have as much of a gentle curve there. I don't know, I've not tried it.
Jimmy's those figures that you can see, so you can get a better idea looking at a drawing,
Yeah.
of exactly what Phil's talking about.
So what I'm going to do is start from this point out towards the rim, and I'm going to do that concave. So I'm going to curve it out as I come. And that's going to give this part of the bowl, or the bottom rather. Can actually probably do that with my bowl gouge. Hopefully. Actually, one of the things I forgot that Jimmy mentions is kind of determining at this time how deep you want this. I'm going to end up wasting away a lot of what's the top to get down to get a smooth surface, but how deep do I want this? This one I actually went too deep. This is actually ended up being more of a bowl than a platter because I went too deep, so this should have been a little bit shallower. So this basically is sitting this way. This platter is a little bit bigger, so I can go a little bit deeper and it would look fine. So I want to give me a target out here to shoot for when I'm bringing this curve out. So probably, and I'm also looking at the grain and everything, if there's anything there. Probably somewhere around here. So I'm just going to draw a line there to give me a target. So what I'm doing is taking from this point to here in that curve. The problem with doing it this way is you don't get the body mechanics of moving your body. I'm having to move my arm more than my body, which makes this a little bit tougher to get the smooth cut. So you can see now, maybe, I'm not sure if you can or not, this width here is about what I have here on top. So I'm trying to go to make that curve. So when I get to this point, I'm at this line on top roughly in a nice curve. Also cutting this way, I'm cutting downhill on the grain. So really that was a target, but I can look at my curve here and see if that's what I like. I've got a little bit of a ridge right here. So I need to come back out a little bit to get rid of that. So I didn't quite get to my line, but that's actually not a bad curve. I think that's going to look okay. I'm not real worried about this finish right now because I'm going to have to come back and do some more work on it anyway, so I'll take care of that in a minute. So the second part of this for Jimmy's method here, excuse me, is about halfway between here and here. So somewhere roughly in there, I'm going to bring this curve down to match, and that's going to give the OG. So if this, however wide that is, and I don't have a ruler right here, but figure about halfway is somewhere in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this down and curve it in to meet the outside so that you'll get the nice flow of the OG.
Show an end shot on that, Bill. We're seeing it from a different point of view. Show the end.
Tell Gerald which one you want, not me. I can't.
You call it the end.
Okay. So you're looking from the tailstock end. How are you folks doing today? Good. Welcome.
Explain that 50% with that shot.
Okay. I didn't realize he wasn't on. So from here, from the outside edge of my foot to the edge of the platter is 2.5 or 3.5, 4 inches. So anyway, about halfway in between, roughly there. So somewhere, maybe I was off a little bit, so maybe a little bit higher.
Actually, Jimmy calls it thirds.
Well, he does for the initial part, but then this is 50/50 for the other curve. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come from the foot out to this line roughly and curve it the opposite way to give the OG curve. And when you do that, when you start here, you want to try to start that curve or bring that curve all the way up to that foot.
So you do have a target mark.
Yes, this line, I don't know if you can see it or not, there's a line right here.
Okay. Yeah, I see it.
So actually there's two, because the first time I was maybe a little bit off, but that one right there. So I'm going to take from here and start curving out. Well, I'm not doing real good here. I'm going to change and use my fingernail gouge because it'd be easier. So from here, I'm just bringing it around. See, I'm coming right to that line I made. And I'm trying to start that curve right at the foot. So there.
You're taking the flat
Off this area here.
Yeah,
So that this curve starts right at that foot.
okay.
So it doesn't go out and then come around. If this is the edge right here, I'm starting that curve right there.
Yeah.
I'm not starting it out here. So there really is no flat right next to that.
Okay, good.
So I can clean this up a little bit more. I'm going to do a shear scrape, so you drop the tool. Let me get my tool rest a little closer. Drop the tool down. Okay. Dropping my gouge way down and just using this edge here in a scraping motion, except my tool rest is in the way there. Move it in some. The handle is in the way. Maybe that'll work. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just using that edge just to get real fine shavings. You can see it's just real fine, so it gives a fairly smooth surface. Won't require a lot of sanding. Still a little rough, not too bad. I don't have any real tear out, and that's a problem with ash in this coarse grain. So now I'm going to try my scraper again here to clean this up a little bit. If I was at home, I would have sanded in here and I'd sand out here, but I'm not going to sand in here. I may hit it lightly with some sandpaper, but I would not do the complete sanding here. So I have my round nose scraper here. As I said, it's a negative rake, so I can kind of come in here and get this curve. Got a little bit of a divot right there. I don't know if you can see that line right there at my fingernail. So I'm trying to get that out. Most of that shadow's disappeared now. I can still feel a little bit right there. I do. A lot of times I'll use a sanding sealer. I have a shellac based sanding sealer that I use, and I'll mix it 50-50 or so with denatured alcohol, so it's pretty thin and it penetrates. And it fills a lot of the pores in, so you can get a better finish. Now, that may not be a perfect OG, but that's not too bad. There's still a little bit of a ridge right there. Trying to, probably just made it worse. Sometimes with this ash, because of the coarse grain, it looks like lines, but it's actually the grain spinning around like a pencil mark or something. It's not really a divot or anything, a shadow like you would get when you don't have a smooth surface. But some of these lines here, this coarse grain, especially the ones that run across, look like a shadow from where you have an indentation or something, but it's not always.
Did you sand that on the lathe?
I do.
Like orbital?
I do a combination of sanding it with the lathe running and with it not running. I generally hit it first with the lathe running to get an overall, and then if I have certain spots, like I do have a little bit of a line here still that I can see and some up here, I would hit those. And I actually just got a random orbital sander, pneumatic one, and boy, I love it. Yeah. It works great. So I will also, I forgot to mention, need to make sure, find my skew here, that the foot here, we want to make sure that this is not higher in the center and lower on this outer edge. You want the outer edge higher than the center so that when it sits, you're really sitting on this outer edge. And that way it'll sit flatter and smoother, and I can check that with my skew, and it actually does You probably can't see it, but there's a little bit of light between this edge and the edge of the skew. Okay, I couldn't tell if you, oh, okay. So that's pretty good. It's pretty smooth. Like I said, if I was at home, I would be sanding this now. And yes, I do, like I said, use some sanding sealer. It works pretty good. It helps. I would, there's a little bit of tear out and stuff in there, but I can do this off the lathe at home when I get there and not have to worry about all the dust and everything in here. So hopefully this will come off without taking the chuck off. There we go. So I'm going to reverse it and start turning the center. And that you can see this screw, wood screw now that fits in the jaws and screws in. That again depends on your brand of chuck as to what size hole and all that. This is Nova, this is actually I think Gerald's, but mine's the same. And I use an 11/32 bit. When you mount this, turn it over and reverse it. Notice I'm pushing in the center. If you push out here, you may get it cocked. So try to push from the center and then tighten your jaws. And again, because this center is a little bit deeper than the outside, I'm getting into all this solid wood. So I can tighten this down pretty good. And you can see that's probably not even 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch there, but not much more than that. And that's going to be plenty to hold this. You're not going to, unless you get really aggressive and get a really bad catch, it's not going to come off.
One of the things that we learned from Bob was if you use the minimum amount of expansion over your chuck, not just have a very small gap between the jaws, it's less likely that you have to go back and sand out those marks that you chuck.
That again goes to sizing that hole properly, because as this expands out, you're only hitting on these points out here. You're not getting the full grip on the jaws. Now, conversely, when you do it on the inside, you're catching these points if you're doing it on a tenon, and that's where you get a lot of marks. Where if you can get it in to the right size on a tenon, it's closer to a perfect circle and you're getting more grip around the whole jaw.
Well, I noticed I have a lot more intense fellowship with my equipment when I don't do what you just did.
Or the piece of wood that goes flying across the room. Yeah.
What kind of chuck is that you have on there?
Nova. Supernova.
Supernova?
Yeah. That's the same as this one.
I've got that, but I don't trust that shot.
Well, you can see these. Do a maybe overhead, Gerald. These are actually dovetail jaws. So even that little 1/8 of an inch out on this edge, you still dovetail. And I did cut that slightly in there. I didn't mention that, but it's not square. But it actually, I mean, you can come up here, you can try to pull that off. You're not going to pull that off of there. Now, a bad catch, yeah. But I mean, it's not going anywhere. Yeah. It really is amazing how well they hold on that little. But again, do what you're comfortable with. Don't do it the way I do it if you're not comfortable. A lot of that's learning and the way you were taught and what you're comfortable with.
Gary, when I started doing this, I used 1/4 of an inch.
Yeah.
But as I got better and better and taking lighter cuts, the 1/8 of an inch is plenty.
Taking lighter cuts, and as Don mentioned earlier, having sharp tools.
That's key.
because I'm not pushing that hard to get it to cut. But when it starts getting dull, you start pushing harder. You're putting more pressure on that. You're more likely to come off. That's why I said, I think it was Tim said, yeah, it's a safety issue. So, you know, you want sharp tools. So, all right, I've got this. What I'm going to do now is kind of just initially flatten this, but I have to decide how thick I want this. And I can see a little bit of, you know, the pith was right here, so that's really close. So it's good that I have this much to waste away. So I'm going to take this down to maybe a 1/4 inch or so, kind of like these, about a 1/4 inch. I guess that other platter, oh, okay. You can pass it around if you want. We can pass these around if you want to look at them. So you can get a better view. So like I said, I'm going to smooth the top now. Every time I raise and lower my hood, the microphone catches. A little bit high. I'm not too worried about the center right now, since that's going to be hollowed out. But I do want to get this down to my rim thickness. It's still pretty rough out there. Got a piece there that may chip out a little bit because there was a knot there. I can see a little bit of a loose edge, but I'll be going down through that. My tool is getting dull. This ash dulls it pretty quick. So I'm going to go just a little bit more. Mainly out here. That's probably about where I want to be. No chips on the edge anymore. It looks pretty good. So you can do is hit this lightly with some sandpaper. Speaking of sandpaper, there's a bag of those sanding belts that my son uses, and under the table there, whatever's not you guys don't take is going to be thrown away. So I'm just going to smooth this a little bit. Actually, I'm going to have to hit it with a tool to get the pencil mark out, I think. Yeah, there's a garbage bag under there full of sanding belts of all the different grits. I've got a square nose scraper. What I'm doing is just kind of rounding this a little bit. Not doing much, is it? I changed the grind and I don't think it's working as well. My skew.
You could do like Jimmy says, don't try to gouge on the edge, just use sandpaper.
Well, I'm just scraping. Just round it over a little bit. Much better. Get rid of the pencil mark I had on there. What you can do, depending on how you want to finish your platter, what your intention is. If you're going to do a paint on here, what you can do is however wide your rim is going to be, make sure you get that smooth and sanded at that point to wherever you want it. Then you can paint it and then hollow it out so you get a nice crisp edge. So if you paint it now and then turn it, you don't have to worry about the paint bleeding over the edge. And if you notice on that one with the blue, well actually probably both of them, there's a black edge. The rim, actual rim is black. So if you get any bleed on the rim, that black pin will cover that up. It's just a black Sharpie is all it was to blacken that edge. And it gives a nice contrast between the two. And like I said, if you get any bleed of the dye or the paint or anything, that covers it up.
So you hollow then paint, or do you paint and hollow?
You paint and then hollow. So you go ahead and get your rim, and then you do the hollow so that you're cutting right at the edge. So you kind of have to plan ahead on what you want to do. Now Gerald,
I'll cover more of that when we do the
okay,
adjustments.
but just see how crisp this edge is. Now he did do burn the line there, which also works. I mean, you can do that. But if you're going to paint, you're better off to paint. Figure out where your edge is going to be. Go ahead and paint it. Get that done. Basically, do all your finishing there, and then do the hollowing, and it gives you that nice, crisp edge around here. Because any bleed is going to not be that deep, and when you cut this in, you get rid of it. Of course, there is a hazard of getting the catch and going back across what you painted, but
What's the finish on that?
lacquer,
Lacquer.
yeah,
It's all in the center on that one.
oil in the center and then spray lacquer on the rim.
Yours is all lacquer.
Yeah, the brown one of mine, the bigger of the two, is all lacquer. That one with the blue rim is just, I think it was orange oil or something. There's no spray-on finish on that. It was just,
Your lacquer, is that rattle can, or you put it in spray?
I use a rattle can. I hate cleaning paint guns.
That's something else, when we do these, we usually finish them on the lathe, because you're doing lots of really small layers of finish, and that's how you get that high gloss.
So now I need to decide how wide I want my rim. And again, it depends on what you're going to do with it. whether you want it, narrower, or if you're going to do something like he did here with this insert, you need it pretty wide. But if you're just going to do, well, actually I don't have anything really, but I mean, you can do them narrower. This one doesn't have any texturing or anything. It was just, this one is just sanded and then finished with friction polish and Beal buffing is all that was finished with. But you can vary your width to where you have a very small center or a larger center, again, depending on what you want to do. But you can also use the Fibonacci gauge here. You can do it either way. To me, I think that's probably about what I want. I don't want a real wide one because I don't know that I'm going to paint this. So I'll just take and kind of aim for right there. Mark it so you can see it. That'll be roughly where my rim is, and then this will be hollowed out. So what I'm going to do now is take from here, actually in a little bit, but I want to get this rim the way I want. You can curve them down and in towards it. You can angle them out. You can round them. The blue one there, it kind of comes in, and then it's got, if you feel the edge there, it's got a little bit of a lip right here. So that if people pick it up and they feel it, you feel that lip. It's all what you want to do. The designs are endless. What do you guys prefer when you're making your platter? What's the intended use of it? Speaking of intended use of it, another thought I didn't mention before, if this is going to be something that you're going to use to put fruit in or something, or it's going to be, utility piece, it's not just sitting on the shelf looking pretty, you want a larger foot, because you don't want a real narrow foot, because somebody puts something in there, it'll tip too easy. You want, the smaller foot, it's going to tip over. So if it's going to be something used, then you can come out even wider on that. Because if you look at a plate at home, one of your dinner plates or something, the base is pretty wide, so that when you're using it, it doesn't tip. This one's fairly narrow, and I actually made that too thin. So it's still, most of the weight would be in here if you're using it, but I probably should have made that a little bit bigger. This one, actually wider. This one I did get wider. It could have been maybe a little bit bigger. But that's, again, something to think about when you're designing your piece. So I'm going to take this, and I'm actually going to probably curve this out a little bit, because right now it's actually going in, so my rim's going to end up a little bit narrower. So I'm just going to kind of use this on this outer edge. And you can do this, we were talking earlier about different tools. You could do this with an easy wood or their tools. It just, what you have and what you want to do and your skill level. You can see my pencil line is gone because I'm actually taking this and working it in, but when I actually hollow it, it'll be back here somewhere.
Bill, I know we've covered this many times before, but for you guys, if you take that rim and you can it to the outside and flare it, outward, it tends to make that bowl or piece look bigger. If you turn it inward, it tends to optically make it look smaller. That's just for the new guy.
Yeah, it's where it draws your eye.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to round that a little bit more. So what I'm trying for is a curve, just a slight curve on the top of mine. So I was talking about earlier when I was reaching out and I didn't have the tool tucked into my side. It was a little rougher. This is actually on my hip. So I'm touching the tool and I'm moving my body back. If you look, my arms are not moving. You get a lot better cut. You're a lot steadier. I'm going to drop this down a little bit again and do the shear cut again. Shear scrape. That's pretty smooth. You see some lines in there, a little sandy.
Use the gauge a lot, or just do it by
The
eye?
Fibonacci gauge, I use it a lot. I don't trust my eye. And really, it's a guideline. I mean, I'm not, that precise. I don't even know if really that works. How accurate it is. I found the plans online, laid it out, drilled the holes where they said. So it's kind of a, it may not be 100% to the golden mean, but it's it gives me a good idea of where to go. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my rim again. Yeah, moved a little bit. Oh well. I'm going to take, this has got kind of a sharp edge here again. So I'm going to round that a little bit. I think rounding this will keep you from bumping your hand on there and cutting. That edge can be like a little razor blade spinning at whatever you're turning at, 1,000 RPM or whatever. So to soften that, makes a nicer edge. I'm just going to hit it real quick with a little bit of sandpaper. But there's not much more boring than watch somebody do a lot of sanding, so that, and we don't want to fill the room full of dust. So what I'm going to do, one of the things you can do, and I think I'm not sure about the brown one, but the blue one with the blue rim, there's actually a little bit of an undercut in there. And that's, again, it's an aesthetic thing or somebody feeling in there. It's just a design feature. One thing I did forget to bring is a parting tool, my thin one, I think. Maybe I did bring it. Hang on a second. No, I did have it. I got it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the parting tool. This is a thin one. I could do it with the point of the skew or whatever. But I'll make a slight cut right there on my line just to give me more of a defined edge for when I start hollowing this out. So I only went in maybe 1/16 of an inch or so. So now I'm going to start hollowing this. When you drill your screw holes, don't go too deep. Go only as deep as you need to get so that the screw does not bottom out. But you don't need to go that far past it because that's going to limit your design. I started one the other day practicing it out of a piece of this, and I had drilled the center a long time ago and rough turned it. And then when I started doing the foot, I went through. So I had a hole all the way through because I drilled the hole for the screw too deep.
If you're using thinner blanks, you can use a spacer over that screw.
Yeah.
It shortens the amount of thread on it.
What?
You get a better purchase for the hole on blank on the chuck.
That's an excellent point, what he's talking about. Some of these screws are a lot longer than others. This one's not too long. But if you have a really thin piece of wood, what you can do is take a piece of 1/8 inch plywood or something, drill a hole in it and put it between. Put it on there and then screw your piece on and it spaces out so you only have you know, maybe that much instead of that much of their screw sticking out. Thanks, Gerald. All right, so that marks where I want my rim to be. So now I'll see if I can hollow this and not make a funnel. So I'm just moving out a little bit each time. Camera is a little bit far over. So when you're hollowing, what I'm doing is I've got the flute of the tool completely closed. So this edge here is basically 90 degrees to the tool rest. I'm trying to touch just the point in there, just to get it to start cutting. And then bring it down and open the flute. This ash is pretty hard. And if I was at home, I would be sharpening my tool. And I don't have multiple big gouges, but I can switch to the fingernail grind and try this. Much better. So I got to the bottom of my hole. So now I can check and see how much room I have to play with. So I'm going to take my calipers, and I've got it between the chuck jaws. And you can see I've got, I don't know if you can or not that far out. That's probably close to an inch thickness there. So I've got a long ways I can go down still. Not worry about going through. Just wanted to check that before I got carried away. Okay. So like I said, the flute's completely closed. Start cutting, then I'm opening it up as I bring it around. I'm rotating this way, but I'm also twisting the gouge. So I come around. You can see it opening up some more. Also kind of going, show you with it off. Not a real smooth cut here, a lot of ridges, but as I come around, I'm kind of dropping the tool handle, bringing it around over the top because there's the center, and then come back down towards the center. So you can see I'm a little high right here. And then bringing it back down. Do famous one more and then I'll measure my thickness again. So now I'm about a ½ inch. So that's still a little thick, so I can keep going. You remember I've got the recess in there, is why I'm sticking those between the jaws here, the little gap between the jaws to get in the center. So I've got a little bit more here. So I don't want to go as deep on the bottom as much as I have cut out there. Alright, now I'm back to where almost right where where I had my groove that I cut to mark my edge. You can feel, obviously, since this gets wider, but you can still feel in here and see how your curve feels. It's pretty rough. My tools are getting extremely dull. I'm going to attempt one more cut with my regular bowl gouge here to see if I can smooth that up a little bit. I'm not going all the way out. I'm starting inside that lip a little bit. That's still pretty rough. Right in that corner there, I'm having a hard time coming around. So let's see if I can scrape that at all. I'm going to move my tool rest in a little bit.
Bill, I don't have one of those, but I do have a round carbide.
Mm-hmm.
Will that work?
It will. I have a round one too, but it's fairly small, and I tend to get a lot of ridges. This helps smooth out those ridges a little bit.
I get a lot of ridges too.
Yeah. If you can get, yep. This gives you more surface area. Like I reground these, changed it a little bit, and I'm not happy with it, so we'll see if it's going to work or not. Yeah, it's working some. because this actually is a little bit undercut here, I'm having to kind of work my way in to get the tip of this scraper in there. To get those grooves out that I made. Got a little bit of a rise in the center there, so what I'm trying to do is you come down below it slightly, raise it up, and then come out. But like I said, I'm not having much luck with this scraper. Yeah, it's still got some grooves in there. I don't know if you can see them or not. So I still need to do some more. I'm gonna try. It's trying to put a burr on it for me with burnish it. Yeah, it belongs to the club. Herman, where's your scraper? He's got a brand new fancy one. I forgot. He said he even sharpened it. In here? Look for those fancy new tools down here. Whoops. Which one is it? Oh, not that one.
Norman takes Sandra on these trips and then he takes her back.
Okay. Where's your Allen wrench?
That's right there on top. Should be.
Anybody have any questions while we're doing this? No? Got everybody totally confused, huh?
Phil's talking about the undercut. He's using a scraper, but carbide tools are real good for that too. Matter of fact, hunter tools or the Jimmy Clues. Geez, I can't tell you which one. There's one of his that's real good for that too. Matter of fact, in the class he asked, I was doing the undercut and he asked me if I was using the mate. I said, no, I'm using a hunter. That works real well for that little undercut under the rim.
All right. Thank you, Herman. We'll see if this does anything.
I won't guarantee it.
Brand new. His, you can see, it's dramatically different than mine. Oh, it feels nice and sharp. We'll see. Oh, yeah. You see, you got a lot more shavings out of that. What's that? Yes. Even on a scraper. It's the only problem is this is not quite narrow enough to get up into that undercut I did. Yeah, it's doing pretty good. All right, we'll call that done for today. I can take it home and, oh, that's much smoother finish than what I had on mine. I've got one now. There's a little bit of a rough edge right here where the rim is, it meets the bowl part, and I'm going to just take that edge off. But I'll take it home and put it back on my lathe, and I can get rid of that groove in there.
He'll return your tool at the next meeting.
Yeah. All right, so that is the basics of turning a platter. And like I said, I'll take it home and sand it and finish it. So any questions on that part of it? Thank you. It stayed on the lathe. I'm happy. All right, Gerald's going to talk about texturing now. So give us a minute to swap over.
Like I said, there's many things you can use. You can use a Dremel with burrs, which is fairly inexpensive by comparison to some of these other tools that we use. I'm going to show you, where's my help? There it is. Some Sorby spiraling and, gosh, can't even remember what this one's called. This one. Yeah, decorating the elf too. I've got that. Gosh.
Is that made for wood turning?
Yeah. And I can't remember what it's called. I made one of these, as a matter of fact. But when you buy these that are intended for metal, they're not as good as these wheels because they're shallower for knurling. Knurling wheels are about $10, I think, a piece. They're cheap. But at any rate, with this particular, there's two sizes of the spiraling, Sorby spiral. Okay, this is a Wagner. Between all of us, we'll remember the word sometime. This is the mini or micro, and it comes with either 2 or 4 different wheels. And this is the larger, and this is a 4mm wheel here. They make a 2, and they make one that's, gosh, I don't know what size it is, but it does only a particular pattern. But at any rate, what we're going to look at today is spiraling. Now, the speed, this one has a brass screw. It does not have a bearing. So maximum speed on this is under 500. This one has a bearing, so you can do about 700 on it. Of course, again, like any kind of embellishments you do like this, the speed that you're got the lathe going affects the pattern that you're going to get. Okay, I'm going to turn this one down to, let's go 625. Now, also with this particular tool, the angle that you hold it affects the pattern that you get. Now, I'm not going to go through all the patterns by any means. We're just showing that it will do something. And when you engage it, you hold it, and then you can bring it across. Can you see that at all? Barely. Okay. So I came prepared for that. Zoom is the lower, middle key. There we go. Got it. All right. We're going to do this backwards. You'll be able to see nice and white when I make some marks. But I'm going to put a little dye on here. Come on now. Figures. I didn't put enough on there. Okay. Now it's starting to show. By the way, any of y'all turn persimmon? This is a piece of persimmon that came out of Bob's shop. And it turns really nice. Of course, this is not a real good stain job, but at least you'll be able to see it. Now, oh gosh, I didn't even think I got a green there. Could have done it. Okay, now, what I like to do is come back and turn it in the opposite direction. when you turn this tool in the opposite direction, you get a pattern that goes the opposite direction. So we're going to do it. Okay, you see the points going this way on this one and that way on that one. Now, another thing you can do is you can do a crosshatch. My crosshatch, let's see, this was it. I think I did that right, or did I? I did the same thing. Okay, we'll turn the other way. Didn't come out good. Okay, you can see it up here. And with the crosshatch, you get a nice emphasis that gives you a real good pattern on a lot of things. I use it on spindle work, handles. This looks real good on handles. And it wouldn't, the bigger one cuts deeper than the small one, by the way. But let's just show this one. And what this does not cut. This only makes an impression in the wood, so you have to press a little harder. Yeah, there. You can see it up here.
Turn it down towards, so it's on the tool rest side.
Let me try.
Well, I know it's out of the camera.
Do.
Rotate your bowl. Just rotate your bowl. There you go. Right there.
Oh, I see. You're
Right there by the tool.
to right here.
Yeah. Because
Let's
if I
turn this
zoom
on.
out, you can't see it.
There's too much light.
Yeah.
What did we do? We had that, and I thought about bringing it, and I didn't bring it. We did an angle. Did that help?
If you don't roll out and square, it will run across the bowl too.
Yeah, you got to be careful with them.
Is that experience?
They will give you lots of nice effects. I just happen to have some dye here too. But I had, just to show y'all, this is chestnut stains, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Okay, chestnut stains is not the only stain available, period. It's just what I use. I also use, gosh, can't even think of what it's called. Nick Agar stains are real good, and they are a little brighter than the chestnut stains. Nah, that blotted it all out. Oh well, worth a try. But something you do to make these patterns stand out is to come in and put an emphasis line. And I'm using a point tool. This is actually a bar stock that's cut down. It's ground to a point. And mimics, Stuart Batty's point tool.
Stick that on the back of the tool rest, see if that helps.
Okay.
Take it around.
Getting anything?
I don't know if that helps.
Well, I don't know if we.
I can't tell on the big, did that help or is it worse?
Let's see if it makes it look better. Not really.
Looks better on here, but I don't know about on there.
Yeah, when we get on the TV, it shatters the light. And what you do is you cut this line where your pattern transitions. Okay, y'all can see the transition there. And that delineates your pattern better. It's not on there good. For some reason, this plate's lopsided. And And you can come back and burn that line. I don't. Maybe I do. Yeah. Come on. Always have a piece of Formica with you. Never know when they'll come in. You can take a piece of Formica in here. Of course, you're going to turn the lathe up to do this. And burn these lines. There we go. You can also use a piece of exotic wood, like purple art is real good for this, as a matter of fact, to make those lines stand out. But that's all part of the embellishment. And one more tool I'll show you, I don't even know if it's going to show up or not, is a decorating elf, which we've talked about this a lot, and several of you guys have made one. What the heck? Well, I guess I am going to show you. The bit just fell out. Okay. Well, I won't delay it by doing that. Okay, that's it on the lathe. And now... Oh, you do? Same difference.
What you're looking for?
Yeah. Okay.
That little tip will fall out.
We'll turn this down a good bit for this. And this makes your pattern based on how you hold the tool. Can you see that one?
Don't think so.
I'm not coming through good. Anyway, that did a real nice little pattern though. I'll just take this off and pass it around. That may be the easiest way to do it, because that's it for all the wood turning today. This will give you some ideas of things you can do to embellish. Not only platters, but your handles, your bowls. I've done this on the rim of a bowl, and it looks pretty cool. It gives you another tool in your toolbox. And sometimes that's what it does. It gives you a tool in your toolbox. But I cut it off. Well, it was on you. If you just use this overhead, I think this will do for the rest of it. Okay. I told y'all I would tell y'all how we did this. This is, I guess Clues pioneered it. Everybody relates this to Clues. You know, he found it somewhere. There's actually 3 colors on this platter. You start out with a dark color. In this case, I think it's black. And he does 2. He calls it sunset, or, and I feel, what does he call the other blue one? There's a blue-green. Anyway, black or blue for the base coat. You sand almost all of it off. Now, to get the desired effect, you have to have a curly wood. This piece has real nice curl. This is what we did in my shop, isn't it? This is what we bought initially when we thought Clues was coming and he didn't make it. So Phil and me and Michael Frazier got together in my shop, and we watched the video. I mean, we would watch 5 minutes of video and go there and do something, you know, and you go back and watch some video. It was cool. It did the job, and I tell you the truth, I think these platters look better than the ones we did actually with Clues, because I couldn't get that good of wood. This was some fantastic wood.
Speaking of which, there's a couple of those blanks Michael Frazier has in here for sale.
Yeah, I don't think they're Clues blanks though, but they're curly. But anyway, you sand off most of that color, and what happens is you see these dark lines. That's where the color stays in the grain. Then you put the next color, which in this case I think is yellow that you put on next, and sand that off some. And then I believe it's red or orange on this one. But this one even has a nice chatoyance in it too. For those of you who don't know, chatoyance is that effect on the grain. When you move something, it looks like the grain moves. That's chatoyance. But that's how that's done. The undercut, like Phil said, it's kind of preference, but it makes it kind of cool. And there's several ways you can do it. Carbide scrapers or a hunter tool or clues, there's several of them now, are easier to do it with than a gouge. But a gouge will do this, believe it or not. Let's see. Let's talk about this. We had Jeff Horning in 2 or 3 months ago, and he showed us how to do this. This is using the Sorby tool and the other one. and then you dye it, and then you put a liming wax on it, and you buff that off, and then you can lacquer it. But that's another effect that you can get by embellishment. I mean, he did both sides. This particular one, this looked too good on the inside. I didn't do both sides. But you see how the effect that the circular lines give you to delineate between the different patterns and make them highlight and stand out a lot better than if you just don't do anything there. Okay. This one I call a sampler because it's got 4 different techniques on here. Really, you could say 5 actually, but anyway, and I actually brought the tools I did it with. Not the motor part, just the cutters. Okay, this is a little saw cutter that actually it's a Dremel, I think, and I didn't use it in a Dremel. I hate Dremels. They are so loud. And I cut lines across here. And I tried to think of something that I could do with this to make these stand out, and wound up using a torch. And the funny thing was, I tried to get torch the whole thing, but it wouldn't. It just did these lines. And I said, well, that's cool too. This is pine, by the way, so it's just samplers, and I wasn't supposed to be anything. The hard part is getting these lines even. And in the pine, it does tear out a little bit. You might get a better results with hardwood. This one is a ball cutter like this.
Maybe hold it up higher.
Higher and higher. Whoop. Which way is which? the other side, the other left. Wait a minute.
There you go.
Not focusing. Yeah, this is a saber-tooth type burr. I think it is a saber-tooth. Anyway, if you go straight down with this type burr, you get this little circular pattern. And there's several different sizes of these things. Now, I know I've got 3 of them at least. But then I tried my hand at dry brush. It didn't turn out too great. But that's that one. Now, this one is a carbide burr. Yeah, let's see if I try it this way. And I used it in a Fordham type machine, a Wheat Shear, which is Woodcraft's brand. This is actually a smaller burr, I think, that I used for this. But anyway, you just do the pattern. And while I'm in that one, I got the idea that, you see, I used the colors and did a kind of a pattern in them, and I got to thinking, I haven't done this yet, but I want to do something like maybe a bird or a butterfly with one color dots and then something else on the outside, a border. And this came along out of that same idea. This is a stick and burn. This is a stick and burn. This is what it is. It's a decal, basically. You burn these lines, and then you color it however you want to. You can use paints. This happened to be pencil. This is all pencil, colored pencil. But you can do anything you want to with these, and then you have to peel off there'll be a little remnant that you'll have to peel off. Use a Sharpie, X-Acto to peel off the little sticky stuff that's left. But that allows you to be an artist where you are not an artist. People will think you are an artist. And so I took my ruler, instead of doing random dots, I drew lines here and actually marked where every one of these goes with a line the other direction. And they're offset, every other one, fairly close, so that they're not lined up straight this way, but the straight's that way. And that's just a thought.
How do you color those?
Okay, those were colored with gourd inks. There is a little tiny brush, and it's not really a brush, it's actually a makeup applicator that you can use to get in those little dots, and just basically you put paint on it and just touch it and it spreads in the whole dot, which I thought really made it easy. But I mean, you can use acrylics. This stuff is, I'll pass this around, y'all can look at it. Metallic. They call it metallic gourd ink. And so you get reflectance from it. Okay, next one. The good old hollow punch set. Everybody's probably got one of these for making something. So, yeah, Harbor Freight, Drill Master. Okay. So I just did a random pattern on this. I didn't do, and then Phil gave me the idea to use a wood burner to just stipple it inside the dots. There's another thing that Nick Agar does. He does a pattern and actually paints these things with an airbrush. Looks really cool.
Did you stick the punch in the drill? Is that what you said?
Yeah, drill press.
Drill press, okay.
Yeah. I mean, you could use a hand drill. There's no reason you couldn't. It's just easier with a drill press to me, it seems like. Anyway, that's that one.
Basically, Gerald, on those rounds, you were just taking the drill press and just pulling down just to cut the circle.
Yeah, just cutting.
You could set it pretty decent hand.
There is another cutter available that I haven't got yet, but it does a dome. In other words, it's like this when it cuts, because the cutter's shaped like that.
I got those.
How big are yours?
It's 3 or 4 different sizes. They go up to about a quarter. Mine now. And they drop down.
Yeah.
To about probably 16.
I looked for them, and the quarter was the biggest I could find. I really wanted something bigger than that, but
The Sandy Scott set is a little bigger than that, Gerald, because that's where I got the idea from him.
and I want to say that he probably got it from Nick Agar, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I bought mine from MDI.
This is on the edge of that platter. I didn't go over it because I just showed you how to do it. I used the Spiral Master on it and did crosshatch, and it's got gilding wax on it. The place I bought this burned.
Told you would.
And but there are other places. I mean, all of the in addition to this, thought I brought it, I didn't. Rub and buff. Rub and buff's the same type of stuff, and all it does is it highlights your texture. Once you get your texture on there, if you put some highlight on it, it makes it stand out better. Either one methods will work. Gilding wax, liming wax. Gilding wax is usually for smaller areas because it is kind of expensive. But like for the rim treatment, works well for that and don't take much. Really, I can't think of anything else I need to go over. Here's something we use on our tops. And we use the brush end. It's easier. It's much easier to use the brush end than the other type.
What is that?
Artist pencils. This is a Tombow. There are any number of other brands. And
It's actually like a felt pen though, right?
yeah, it's basically a felt pen in colors. And it's, let's see, now it don't really. They make these that actually is like an artist brush that actually move like a brush. These don't. They're hard. They're hard ends. But let's see. Y'all probably all seen these. That's what we do. It gives effect. And the fantastic thing about working with color, I know some people don't like colors. They say, wood turning, I'm wood turning, I don't want color. It gives an impact to your work that is not there without it. Even though you use the texturing, you use all of those methods, if you don't have some impact, something to get attention and say, hey, I remember that. Okay, all right, or it's another brown bowl. If you want to turn brown bowls, that's fine. And I turn some brown bowls too. I got some over there. But